Back in the mid-80s, the average new home ran about $80,000, which is around $230,000 in today's money. In 1989, the median household income hovered around $30,000 a year, equal to about $75,000 today. Wages have gone up since, sitting closer to $80,000 now, but the cost of housing, college, and childcare eats away at it. Back then, your paycheck stretched further. Today, even with more dollars, it feels like less security. A brand new car in 1985 averaged about $8,000, which is roughly $23,000 in today's dollars. Compare that to now, when the average new ride costs around $48,000. Sure, cars today are loaded with safety features and tech, but back then, buying a shiny new Chevy or Ford didn't leave you buried in years of debt. Renting a modest two-bedroom apartment in 1985 cost about $350 a month, equal to around $1,200 today. In many cities now, that same space runs $1,800 to $2,500. Rent was still a burden in the 80s, but you weren't forced to sacrifice half your paycheck for four walls and a roof. Gasoline in 1980 ran about $1.20 a gallon, which comes out to about $4.10 today. By 1986, it dipped closer to 90 cents, around $2.70 now. These days, gas usually sits around $3 to $4 a gallon. Even with swings back then, families filled tanks without flinching. Every price spike feels like a gut punch. Public college tuition in 1980 averaged $1,000 to $1,500 a year, which translates to roughly $3,800 to $5,700 today. Now, the same schools often charge $10,000 or $11,000 a year just for tuition. In the 80s, parents and part-time jobs could cover it. Today, students graduate with debt that sometimes hangs around for decades. Groceries in the 1980s still felt affordable. A loaf of bread cost about 50 cents, a gallon of milk around $1.80, and a dozen eggs close to 90 cents. Prices have gone up, but not nearly as fast as housing or childcare. It was food you could budget around. Fast food in the 80s was cheap and simple. A hamburger ran about 50 cents, equal to $1.40 today. Now the same burger costs $2 to $3, and value menus keep shrinking. Back then, grabbing dinner at McDonald's was a budget-friendly break. Today, it feels closer to the price of a sit-down meal. Health insurance premiums in the late 80s averaged around $1,100 a year for a family, about $3,500 to $4,000 today. Compare that to now, when family premiums can top $22,000 annually. Back then, insurance came standard with many jobs and was simple. Today, it's a puzzle of networks, deductibles, and enough paperwork to make you dizzy. Mortgage interest rates in the 80s often ran in the double digits, 12, 15, sometimes even 18%. Payments were steep, but the houses themselves cost far less. Today's rates hover in the mid-single digits. But with prices sky high, many families find ownership harder. In truth, the weight on the middle class is heavy in both eras. Back in the 80s, savings accounts and CDs often returned 7 to 10% interest. Families could put money in the bank and actually watch it grow. Folks today work harder to save, yet see little reward compared to what their parents earned. Childcare in 1985 cost about $250 a month per child, equal to about $850 today. Now, parents shell out $1,500 to $2,000 for the same service. In the 80s, many mothers still stayed home, so daycare wasn't universal. For those who needed it, the costs didn't eat half the family's paycheck like they do now. Movie tickets in the mid-80s cost about $3, roughly $8.50 today. A standard ticket runs $13 to $15, and premium formats add even more. Families could take the kids to a Saturday matinee without draining the wallet. Today, a night at the theater often feels like a splurge instead of a regular treat. Fitness in the 1980s was Jane Fonda tapes in the living room, mall walkers pacing before stores opened, and neon sweet bands soaking with effort. Today, it's boutique gyms, wearables, counting steps, and Peloton classes beamed in live. Effective? Yes, but more commercial. Exercise back then felt less about metrics and more about simply moving your body. Mailing a letter in the 1980s cost 20 to 25 cents, about 60 to 70 cents in today's money. Stamps today run 68 cents and keep climbing, even though most people hardly mail letters anymore. Back then, you always kept a roll in the drawer. These days, the mailbox sees more bills than postcards. Long-distance phone calls in the late 80s cost about 20 cents a minute, around 55 cents today. Folks watched the clock carefully when calling relatives across states. Now we have video calls over Wi-Fi that don't cost a dime. Technology won the price war, but back then phone calls carried a weight they don't today. A round-trip flight from New York to Los Angeles in 1985 ran about $300, equal to $860 today. Now, discount carriers sometimes sell that same flight for under $300, but you'll pay fees for bags, food, even picking a seat. Flying then cost more, but it still felt special. Now it feels more like a chore. Smoking was everywhere in the 80s. You lit up in offices, airplanes, and restaurants with ashtrays on every table. Today, indoor smoking bans are nearly universal, and most people recoil at the smell. Looking back, it's hard to believe how normal it once was. But at the time, nobody thought twice about it. Drinking and driving was treated a lot more casually in the 1980s. Folks might leave a bar and drive home without a second thought. These days, stricter laws, checkpoints, and rideshare apps make it far less common. The roads are safer now, but that shift came from years of tough lessons and campaigns. In suburban blocks during the 1980s, neighbors organized crime watches and threw block parties. Everyone knew each other's names, kids played across yards, and trust ran deep. Today, security cameras, neighborhood apps, and Ring doorbell alerts fill the gap. The tools work, but they don't replace the handshake and trust that built neighborhoods back then. A 25-inch color television in 1985 cost around $400, equal to $1,150 today. These days, you can buy a 55-inch 4K TV for $300 to $500. The price of screens collapsed even as the picture sharpened. Back then, the TV was an investment. Now, you can replace it for less than a month's rent. The first IBM personal computer in 1981 cost about $1,565, nearly $5,100 today. Apple's Macintosh in 1984 went for $2,495, about $7,000 in today's money. In many suburban neighborhoods during the 1980s, doors were left unlocked without worry. Kids roamed until dark, and parents trusted their neighbors. Today, security cameras, alarms, and deadbolts are the norm. Times may be safer in some ways, but the sense of everyday trust has slipped. And folks remember how different that felt. The 1980s still carried a strong American manufacturing identity. Union jobs in auto plants, steel mills, and factories offered steady pay and pensions. By the 2020s, most of those jobs had vanished, moved overseas, or replaced by service work. Families once built middle-class lives on factory wages. Now many scrape by in jobs without the same security. Renting a video in the 80s cost $2 or $3 a night, which equals $6 to $9 today. Friday evenings often meant stopping at Blockbuster and arguing over what to pick. Now streaming services offer endless catalogs for a monthly fee. It's convenient, yes, but it doesn't have the same excitement as holding that VHS box. Dating in the 1980s meant meeting through church groups, workplaces, or friends of friends. Couples danced at weddings or shared sodas at diners. Today, apps and DMIs replace those introductions, swiping through faces instead of bumping into someone by chance. Love is still love, but it feels less magical when it starts with a thumb on a screen. In 1985, you could furnish a whole living room for under $1,000, equal to around $3,000 today. Now, even mid-range sets often run $4,000 or more. Back then, a couch, chairs, and coffee table didn't break the bank. Families shopped together, loaded it up on a truck, and had it all set by dinner time. A brand new refrigerator in the mid-80s cost about $600 to $800, equal to $1,800 to $2,400 today. Families expected them to last 15 or 20 years. Today, you'll pay $2,000 to $3,500 for a new one with flashy features, but often shorter lifespans. Electricity bills in the 80s averaged about $60 to $70 a month, equal to $200 to $240 today. Families budgeted around it and costs stayed steady. Now winter bills can swing past $400 or $500 without warning. Back then, flipping on lights or running the TV didn't make you wince at what the bill might say? In 1980, the average new home measured about 1,700 square feet. Back in the 80s, plenty of middle-class families got by on one income. Dad might work at the factory or office while mom kept the home running. These days, dual incomes are almost required just to make ends meet. It's not that families got greedy, it's that costs grew faster than paychecks could keep up. Job security looked different in the 1980s. Plenty of folks expected to spend their whole career at one company, collecting a pension at the end. These days, job hopping is the norm. Retirement feels less like a promise and more like a gamble tied to the ups and downs of Wall Street. Patriotism in the 80s had a way of pulling folks together. The 1984 Olympics, Reagan speeches, even a parade could stir up pride that felt shared. These days, politics and culture often divide more than they unite. People still love the country, but the sense of common spirit isn't as easy to find. Banking in the 1980s meant passbooks and teller windows that closed by 3 on Fridays. If you didn't make it in time, you waited until Monday. Today, it's 24/7 apps, Zelle transfers, and a team is on every corner. Convenient, sure, but something about walking out of the bank with your stamped passbook felt more real. Payments used to mean cash and checks, maybe a charge card at the department store. Folks balanced checkbooks and tucked receipts into wallets. These days, it's tap to pay, auto subscriptions, and money moving with the swipe of a phone. It's fast and slick, but it also feels like money disappears without you noticing half the time. Fees were simpler back in the 1980s. You bought a plane ticket and got a seat, a meal, and a bag included. Concerts had ticket prices, not endless service fees. These days, it feels like every purchase hides a little gotcha cost. Airlines, delivery apps, ticket sites. What once felt straightforward now feels like a maze. Shopping in the 1980s meant malls and catalogs. Families made a day of it, walking past window displays and grabbing lunch at the food court. Catalogs like Sears gave kids hours of circling toys in pencil. Today, it's all e-commerce, next-day shipping, and porch pirates. Convenient, but not nearly as fun as browsing together. Entertainment choices in the 80s were limited. 3 big TV networks, maybe some cable, and a stack of VHS tapes. Families watched shows at the same time, talking about them the next day. Now there's endless streaming, podcasts, and shorts, but somehow everyone's watching something different. Back then, television united us. News in the 1980s came in the morning paper or on the evening broadcast. If something happened overnight, you heard about it the next day. Now push alerts buzz in your pocket minute by minute. You're always up to date, but the pace never stops. Back then, the world felt slower, calmer, easier to digest. Privacy meant more. In the 80s, you could keep an unlisted number, take pictures on film, and live without a digital trail. Today, phones track your steps, smart devices listen in, and clouds hold everything. This life's more connected. But sometimes you wish for the days when your personal business really stayed personal. Parenting looked freer in the 1980s. Kids rode bikes until dark. Parents yelled out the back door when dinner was ready, and nobody tracked your location. Now it's car seats, phone apps, and calendars packed with scheduled activities. Children may be safer today, but they've lost some of the freedom that made childhood feel wide open. Schools in the 1980s ran on chalkboards, overhead projectors, and film strips. Teachers rolled TVs into classrooms on carts, and kids leaned in for the lesson. Today it's smartboards, tablets, and online portals. Technology brings new tools, but there was something special about squeaky chalk and a teacher's handwriting stretched across the board. Travel planning used to mean visiting a travel agent, picking up glossy brochures, and walking away with paper tickets in a folder. Families kept them safe until the trip. Now it's fare trackers, apps, and QR codes. It's quicker, but somehow less exciting than holding those tickets in your hand and dreaming before you left. Navigation in the 1980s was all about glove box maps. Dad would unfold a giant paper chart. Mom turned it around and kids pointed at landmarks out the window. Now, GPS tells you where to turn with live traffic updates. It's efficient, but it can't replace the teamwork of navigating by map and guesswork. Safety in the 80s was lap belts, no airbags, and parents reminding you to hang on. Now it's airbags all around, ABS brakes, lane keep assists, and automatic emergency braking. Cars are safer than ever, no doubt. Still, people remember piling into the back seat with siblings and friends. No car seats, just laughter and trust. Environmental awareness was just beginning. In the 1980s, cars still used leaded gas and aerosol cans sprayed CFCs into the air. Slowly, catalytic converters and cleaner fuels arrived, and the ozone hole woke people up. Today, many of those changes are standard, but back then, most folks were only starting to realize the impact. Energy efficiency wasn't a big focus in the 1980s. Houses had drafty windows. Cars guzzled gas, and light bulbs burned hot. Today, we've got LEDs, insulated windows, Energy Star appliances, and hybrids, or EVs. It's progress, no doubt, but it shows just how much we had to learn about stretching energy further. Dinner in the 1980s meant casseroles, frozen TV dinners, or meat and potato staples. Families ate together at the table, even if it was simple. Today, it's organics, meal kits, and food delivery apps arriving by the bag. More choice is nice, but something about a bubbling casserole dish shared in the kitchen still warms hearts. Fast food portions in the 1980s were smaller. A soda was 12 ounces, a burger fit one hand, and fries came in a paper sleeve. Now medium often feels like supersize, and servings are bigger than ever. Back then, you left full, but not stuffed. Today, portion creep makes every meal a little heavier. Coffee in the 1980s meant 50-cent mugs poured endlessly at diners, which comes to about $1.40 today. It was hot, simple, and came with friendly conversation. Now, specialty lattes run $4 to $7, with more choices than you can count. Coffee became an experience, but part of you misses the no-nonsense refill at the counter. A six-pack of beer in the 1980s averaged $3 to $4, equal to about $8 to $11 today. Craft beer 4-packs often sell for $12 to $16. Back then, beer was simpler, bud. Miller Coors, and it was about kicking back with friends. Today you get endless styles, but sometimes it feels less about company and more about labels. In the 1980s, you might catch one ball game a week on TV, and the rest you followed on radio or in the paper. Now, every league streams in high definition with endless replays. It's amazing access, sure, but back then, waiting for that one televised game made it feel special in a way that is harder to match today. Music discovery meant listening to Casey Kassem's Countdown on the radio or browsing record stores on Saturdays, flipping through albums until one caught your eye. Algorithms suggest playlists instantly. It's easier but less personal. In the 80s, hunting down a song or saving up for a record felt like a victory you truly earned. Photography in the 1980s meant dropping off film and waiting an hour or sometimes a week for prints. Families gathered around glossy envelopes, laughing at red eyes and double exposures. Now, 4K phones snap endless shots, edited instantly with filters and stored in the cloud. Convenient, yes, but nothing beats holding real photos fresh from the lab. Social life revolved around bowling leagues, church socials, and card nights with neighbors. People dressed up a little and actually showed up in person. Today, it's group chats, Discord servers, and fitness apps, keeping folks connected. Easier to manage maybe, but it doesn't carry the same warmth as sharing pie after a league game. The Sears wish book was a holiday tradition. Kids circled toys in pencil and parents folded corners to remember. Ordering by mail took weeks.